Every week, Hillsdale College President Larry P. Arnn joins Hugh Hewitt to discuss great books, great men, and great ideas. This is the Hillsdale Dialogues, part of the Hillsdale College Podcast Network. More episodes at podcast.hillsdale.edu or wherever you find your audio. Also at the Hillsdale College Podcast Network, check out the Radio Free Hillsdale Hour, the Hillsdale College K-12 Classical Education Podcast, The Larry P. Arnn Show, and more, all at podcast.hillsdale.edu.
Morning, glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. I'm Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway in the Relief Factor studio, and that music means one thing. The last radio hour of the week is upon us in this week of weeks, and I am joined by Hillsdale College's president, my friend Dr. Larry Arnn. All things Hillsdale at hillsdale.edu. All of our prior conversations, hundreds and hundreds of them, can be found at hughforhillsdale.com. We usually talk about old books and big historical events, but this week we're looking back at Tuesday, and I think it's going to go long, and therefore I'm going to play the rest of it on Monday. But Dr. Arnn, Good Friday to you, and tell me what you think happened.
Well, it's a landmark. I think Trump is a force of nature. I think he did all the things that it's not supposed to be able to do today in this controlled and managed age. And Vance, I think, was a tremendous addition to the ticket. And I think they've got an argument, and they ran a very disciplined campaign. And it's a very divided country. The election is close. And I remember from memory, I want to say this now, I think Richard Nixon might have got 61% of the vote against George McGovern. Reagan got in the high 50s. He never got 60. Trump is in the low 50s, and that's what we call a landslide now.
First popular vote, which does not matter. As you like to say, the constitutional majority, it was a landslide, but he won the popular vote. Of consequence, do you think, Dr. Arnn, that he won the popular vote?
Yeah, it's because it's an important moral argument that underlies the Electoral College, by the way. It, too, has to have a basis in popular support for it to be legitimate. We don't have rule by birth here, right? And so the way the Electoral College is supposed to work, it never did work this way, by the way, but they thought that the state legislatures would pick electors who would pick the president, and they would have a real deliberation about that. And, meet on a day. They got to meet. There's that court case in the 1960 election where they didn't meet, and so a lawsuit that Richard Nixon filed in Hawaii to overturn the results was rendered moot by a judge because the electors had not met on the day. Well, they picked the state legislatures because there's a lot of them and it couldn't be a cabal, and because the state legislatures are elected. So they have a basis in popular support. But the constitutional way, they like two-step and three-step processes. But also the Electoral College serves to spread the vote across the country. Because remember, the great thing about us is we're a really big country and popularly ruled. And so concentrated support geographically is not good enough. And so that's why it exists. But it too holds up the thing that we vote. And
now, Dr. Arnn, before we get to specifics about how to translate what the event means and what the president-elect ought to do and all that good stuff, you and I are in unusual positions. We don't want anything. So we have a great deal of distance from the Beltway carnival of I want this job and I want that job and how do I get that? I don't even want tickets to the inaugural. I want nothing. I'm sure you're the same way. All I ask, or that be considered, is that the president-elect look at Lincoln's first inaugural and consider borrowing the term, we are not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies, and you know the rest. Do you think he could or would do such a thing? Because we are not enemies. We are citizens.
Well, we know two things. We know that is precisely what he did in 2016. he didn't want to prosecute somebody for political differences. We know the second thing we know is that on the campaign trail, and remember, the man has been convicted of 34 felonies, and he's been prosecuted in several jurisdictions. And so he talked hard about that. And so I don't, you only prosecute somebody for a crime that's known in advance and recognizable, and the facts are clear. And so if there are such things, then sure. But it's hard to prosecute a political enemy, as, by the way, they have seen, haven't they? Because remember, the forest for the trees is that beginning in January 2016, they contrived a strategy. And January 2020, there was a riot and a mutiny and a rebellion and an insurrection, that's the word that they used, that attempt to overturn the election, and Donald Trump was behind it. And, come to find out that isn't true. There was a big demonstration to which we have a right, and Donald Trump encouraged them to be peaceful. Everything he said that we have a record of in public and in private is be peaceful. And then some of them breached the Capitol, and that's trespass, and they should have been prosecuted for that. They are, maybe over-prosecuted. Anyway, the point is, that was their thing. And then the January 6th Commission, that was a cooked-up job, right? Because Nancy Pelosi did not accept Kevin McCarthy's nominees for the commission. She picked her own.
The chairman is supposed to have been Jim Banks. The minority member was supposed to be Jim Banks, who is now senator-elect from Indiana, in one of the great twists of history. Nancy Pelosi blocked him, and now he is the senator-elect from Indiana.
And he got Liz Cheney, and it's now known in the House of Representatives investigation that they had a lot of evidence that they didn't put on the record, and it was exculpatory. And so it was a put-up job. And then Trump they invade his house for documents, having secret documents and mishandling them. And right after they did that, they discovered that Joe Biden had a bunch of documents in his garage near his sports car. That was a little embarrassing, but never mind. And they're prosecuting him in New York State and Washington, D.C., and in Florida, where Mar-a-Lago is. And they didn't have much success in Florida, but in New York State and in Washington, D.C., they were getting somewhere. Kamala Harris got 86% of the vote in Washington, D.C. this time. So all that's going on, and that's a major strategy to eliminate Donald Trump from public life and take his money and put him in jail, right? Well, here's the forest. They did not make the campaign about that. They mentioned it. Kamala, especially in the last week when she saw she was in trouble, talked quite a bit about it. But their ads were not really about that, right? And that means that they did that stuff and they advertised it and they took polls and they saw that it was not helping them. And so that's the first thing, right? That I began to be encouraged about the election, because I believe in being a hopeful person. And I didn't say it on the radio until the election's over, but I voted for Donald Trump, which is not a shocker to anybody, but we don't campaign for anybody on this program or at Hillsdale College. Anyway, I was hopeful about the election because of that. I just said, wow, look at that. They did unprecedented things, and they're not talking about them now. That's something. And, that had to do with Trump's winning the primary, too. I mean, his own gifts are serious, very considerable. But nobody could get any traction against him because they martyred him with his base, and it looked questionable to much of the rest of the population. And
Amen.
So that's
now. Pause for a moment. I want to make sure I hit a break. Also, the update on the breaking news: the King of Netherlands has put out a statement. Quote: "We failed the Jewish community during World War II. And last night we failed again, talking about a pogrom underway. I think it's over now, where Jews were pursued and injured and hospitalized by mobs on the street last night in Amsterdam. And the King of the Netherlands, we failed the Jewish community during World War II, and last night we failed again. Don't go anywhere except to hillsdale.edu. We'll be right back with Dr. Arnn, continuing our conversation about Tuesday. Hillsdale.edu. All things Hillsdale are right there. And all of the Hillsdale Dialogues are collected at hughforhillsdale.com. We'll be right back. Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. The Hillsdale Dialogue is underway. All things Hillsdale at hillsdale.edu. All of our prior dialogues, hundreds of them, collected at hughforhillsdale.com. Dr. Larry Arnn, president of Hillsdale College, is my guest. Time to talk about resilience. Until Tuesday, Richard Nixon kind of owned the word. He came back from everything, political defeat, disgrace, but he hadn't been shot in the head. Now Donald Trump. Let's just talk about resilience, Dr. Arnn. The people who stand out in history are all resilient. Whether I'm not comparing virtues and vices, I'm just saying the people who endure are the resilient ones. Comment?
Yeah. Donald Trump is, we knew when he started running, first of all, what a shocking thing in 2015 that it came to seem that Donald Trump was going to be a serious candidate for the presidency. Because you have to be old enough to remember, most people are, what he was a flamboyant businessman, had a bankruptcy, had a lot of success, built a lot of stuff. And he built his business around his brand. And he would make various cocky statements during the 30 years leading up to him becoming president of the United States, in which he could see the country was going wrong, around themes that are at the heart of his political career now, and that he liked business so much, but he might have to step in there and fix it. He would say things like that. And,
often.
What an amazingly cocky thing to say. And then you find out that he is a national figure and he is appealing. And you find out that he works like a dog night and day, except when he's playing golf. His only nutritional vice is Diet Coke, if that's a vice. I like it too.
Oh, he does eat a lot of McDonald's, Dr. Arnn. He does eat a lot of cheeseburgers.
He's a very big man. I've been.
Yes, he is.
And he's a very large human being, and he got big hands, and he's physically imposing, and he just works all the time. And so that's
he's also very funny. Can I pause? I've had only a few encounters with him that are not public. And in one of those, he said to me, he remarked, "You don't know much about business, do you?" I said, "No, I'm not. I don't know. I'm a good lawyer. I can broadcast." But he's very funny.
Oh, yeah. He, one of my students was working for him, and he asked the young man, who's an important young man, about his job. And the young man, I'm not going to say his name, but the young man told him, and he said, "Is that an exciting life?" And the young man said, "Very." And Trump said, "Exciting like the life of Tiger Woods." This student of mine thinks that Trump would really like to be Tiger Woods. Apparently, he's a very good golfer. And
the president-elect is a very good golfer. I've had that attested to by people who have played with him. Yep.
And the young man said, "Better." And Trump said, "Why?" And he said, "Mr. President, we get to save the country." And Trump said, "That's right. We do live exciting lives, don't we?"
Hillsdale College is a small, Christian, classical liberal arts college that operates independently of government funding, and we want you or your son or daughter to apply. At Hillsdale, students grow in heart and mind by studying timeless truths in a supportive community dedicated to the highest things. Hillsdale College costs significantly less than other nationally ranked private liberal arts colleges and receives regular recognition as a best value, and nearly all students receive financial aid. Our robust core curriculum, vibrant student life, an 8-to-1 student-to-faculty ratio make for an education like no other. For more information or to fill out an application, visit hillsdale.edu/info. That's hillsdale.edu/info.
Welcome back, America. The Hillsdale Dialogue underway. I'm talking with Dr. Larry Arnn, president of Hillsdale College. All things Hillsdale at hillsdale.edu. They sponsor this each week, and we have hundreds of Hillsdale Dialogues collected at hughforhillsdale.com. On Tuesday, President-elect Trump won. The Senate went Republican, and it looks like the House Republican majority will stay in place. Dr. Arnn, if the House holds, and the counting will go on all weekend in California and in the next, if the counting holds, do you expect a lot from this Congress in concert with the president-elect?
Well, I expect politics to intensify now. And here's what I mean by that. First of all, I want to say one thing, lest we forget to say it. By these standards, by what's been prevailing in the last 30 years, this was a landslide. Elections are very close in America now.
Oh, yes.
But a second thing that's striking about it is how amazingly broad it is. So Trump, fighting as a central theme illegal immigration, got 45% of the Hispanic vote. He doubled his vote among blacks to 15%. That's low, but a lot better than they've been getting. And more among black men. The man-woman divide in the vote was not worse than it was in 2020, better than it was against Hillary Clinton. Then he improved. I think he might have gotten 44% of the women, but that's up in the air right now. And the reason is there's this thing I'll refer the readers to. The AP does a 120,000 sample poll during the course of the voting season, which is kind of long now. And they ask, and it's what used to be exit polls. Exit polls have never been very good. This is at least a very serious effort based, I think, at the University of Chicago. And the data set is not available yet. But I'm going to download it when it is available because you can do what they call in polling crosstabs. You can see how many of this kind and how many of that kind. And some of that's on the AP website, but it's not detailed enough to be able to figure out exactly what percentage of the women vote. You can tell what percentage by age group the women vote there was. Anyway, it held, right? And Trump won the men, and Kamala won the women, but it was close, and that means that that's what my never Trump friends have. How many times have I had arguments about this? This MAGA movement, Donald Trump's political support, is very broad and reaching far. And he has defied the advice of the established Republican Party, much of which has been against him.
Again and again and again and again.
And he gets more Hispanic votes and black votes than they got. And they say, we can't do these things because we'll lose those votes. And that seems to be simply disproved now.
And Dr. Arnn, I got to underscore something you just said. You talk with your never Trump friend. So do I. But the key point is we have them. And I don't think people understand that conservative people are not, by and large, consumed by politics to the point that they would sever relationships over politics. And we are birthed in the party of Lincoln, whose first inaugural is, we are not enemies, we must be friends. And do you think the left understands that at all?
Yeah, well, there's the left and the left. And the serious problem, like I've enjoyed reading about this election. It's like
so have I.
And so I've spent some time on it, and I think I see a theme, and that is the establishment went for Kamala, and the insurgency went for Trump, and the insurgency is bigger. And I think
much
that phenomenon,
bigger.
Yeah, well, it has to be, but it's also sort of a logical deduction. Like if there's a few who have outsized power, then by definition they're a minority. And
by the way, Michigan went for Trump. Michigan. Yeah. I am sorry that Mike Rogers, a very good man who I hope ends up at the FBI or somewhere in the government, I was so astonished on election night. I thought maybe Pennsylvania, and a great night, Wisconsin. I never really banked on Michigan. It's sort of been the Lucy football state, right? We don't get Michigan.
Yeah. Well, he got it in 2016. He didn't get it in 2020.
Right. It reverted.
And in 2016, if I remember right, Wisconsin was closer than Michigan. This time, Michigan was as close as any state. I guess they're still counting votes in Arizona, I think.
Yes, and they will all weekend.
Yeah, but, I don't know what it is. There's some states and they don't know how to count. I don't know what that is.
You have to resolve to be fair and fast, as Florida did after the debacle of 2000, and they are fair and fast.
Yeah, and add to that, fair is a synonym for transparent, right?
Yes.
In other words,
yes,
everybody's got to know everything, and in elections, secrets, especially regarding ballot counting, are dangerous, and there are too many secrets in the COVID 2020 thing, right? I never claimed that the 2020 election was stolen. I've said consistently, you can't know. And the reason is, in Michigan, for example, they changed the election practices significantly, one party alone in the executive branch. And that happened in other states I read as well. And the legislative branch at that time was in the hands of the opposite party and the Republicans, and they didn't ask any questions about it. And so the truth is, you just can't know, right? It wasn't transparent. And then there was this Zuckerberg intervention. And what did that mean? And I don't think the facts are known about that even now. And that's
we don't know anything. We will never know what happened in 2020, other than, gosh, I hope we are never in that situation again. Dr. Arnn, I want to, before we conclude, and we're going to have a two-parter. This is going to go into Monday. I want this to be on the Friday program, though. I listen whenever it comes out to the commentary podcast, because the combination of John Podhoretz, Abe Greenwald, Matt Continetti, Christine Rosen, and Seth Mandel is wonderfully smart. I mean, they are very, very smart. I sometimes disagree with them, and they sometimes disagree with me, but I listen to them. On the day after the election, they got together early in the morning, and they were just, thunderstruck, as we all were, at the breadth and depth of the Trump triumph. And they called it Trump's triumph. And John Podhoretz observed that the left has been saying authoritarianism is about in the country. And John remarked, and I thought it was so smart, indeed it has been. And it has been on the left. Andrew Cuomo was threatening to arrest people coming into New York who didn't have a vaccine card, and the schools were closed. And he then added, and it was a laugh out loud moment. I was out walking and I laughed out loud. He said, and they enjoyed it. The left enjoyed the raw exercise of power over the lives of their fellow citizens. I don't know that we have yet fully grasped how mad Americans are about that. Do you think that's part of this vote?
Well, my favorite ad in the campaign was done by Make America Healthy Again. That's Robert Kennedy Jr.'s thing. And because I like that ad so much, and it's the one where she's bragging about putting mothers in jail. And it's kind of delicious. She's giving a speech, and it's costing California $1 billion plus. The kids are missing school. I don't know exactly how that happens, but maybe it's federal money you don't get or something. And so she decided to prosecute mothers for truancy. And the point of it, and they have a mother on there who had a hospitalized daughter who was prosecuted and lost her health, lost her house, and lost her livelihood. And then it's interspersed with Kamala saying, it's my gang prosecutors and my murder prosecutors who volunteered to go and do this. And I told them, be really mean. And that will have the desired effect. And the point is, she's relishing that. And she, at one point, uses a gesture. She says, with a wave of my pen. And so, yeah, that's not good, is it? Winston Churchill said this in the middle of the Second World War. He said, they said, what are we going to do about the Germans? And he said, there are 55 million malignant Huns, and some of them are killable, some of them are curable, and some of them are killable. Well, that's very hard talk against an enemy in war. He didn't talk that way about his own people, for whom he's a servant. He once, there's a wonderful account of this. There was a general strike in 1925 in Britain, and he was Chancellor of the Exchequer, and he published a newspaper because the newspapers were all struck against. Nobody could do it. So the government, put together a newspaper, and he edited it called the British Gazette. And he's given a talk about in the House of Commons, and Stanley Baldwin, sometime friend, sometime enemy, very clever man, who was prime minister, writes an account of the talk to the king. And Churchill says, Churchill's, he can really talk. He's good at war talk. And he says, and if there is unleashed upon the British people another crippling general strike, we will meet them. And Baldwin replies that the Labour Party leaned forward, getting ready to scream at him. And he said, with another British Gazette. See, such humor. Isn't that good?
Now, Dr. Arnn, well, let's pause there. Dr. Arnn, let's pause there. We'll come right back after the break. All things Hillsdale at hillsdale.edu. All of our prior dialogue, including, we've interrupted the Plato series on the Republic to do last week the election preview, and this week the election postmortem. And I'm going to put all at YouTube, and I'm going to keep talking with Dr. Arnn after the show and play a lot of it on Tuesday, Veterans Day. But we'll do that. We'll go back to Plato next Friday. Don't go anywhere, America. Hillsdale.edu or Hugh for Hillsdale.com. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Dr. Arnn will be right back.
Do you believe in our founders' vision for America? That our republic will only survive if we are an educated and informed people who know our rights and duties. Since 1844, Hillsdale College has sought to educate all who wish to learn about these timeless principles of self-government. For more than 50 years, the college has worked to spread that mission by sending Imprimis to millions of Americans. Imprimis features some of the best speeches given at Hillsdale events, and now an audio version of the popular Speech Digest is available in a new podcast of the same name. And, like the print publication, Imprimis, the podcast, is always free. Listen to the best arguments from speakers such as Chris Rufo, Molly Hemingway, Mark Stein, and Hillsdale College President Larry Arnn, read by Hillsdale students. Subscribe today to listen to Imprimis at podcast.hillsdale.edu. That's podcast.hillsdale.edu or wherever you get your audio.
Welcome back, America. I'm running late here. I'm barely halfway through my outline, but I want to wrap up part one. There are two things you often say, and I often quote you saying. One is Winston Churchill trusts the people, and the second is fundamental things are afoot. Well, we trusted the people, and the people came through from our point of view, the point of view of constitutionalists who believe in the genius of the framing and the glory of the Declaration. Now, the second thing, fundamental things are afoot, I don't think that ends. Now, in 2 or 3 minutes, I think it intensifies, agree with you. Do you think the Republican Party is equipped for what is a long battle and to use their temporary opening, their momentary, if they hold the House, they get to do a reconciliation bill a year that requires a simple majority in the Senate, and I don't want the filibuster to go anywhere. Do you think they will seize the moment?
I would judge that they're better equipped to do that now than they were, because we've all been getting an education since 2015 and the emergence of Donald Trump, because he made politics intensify. And I want to say why. Everybody agrees in America that we have to have a strong central government and a strong local government. We should have stronger local government. And everybody agrees that we have to have an administration. The question before the House is, where does sovereignty lie? Is sovereignty in the expertise of the civil servants who are non-political, and that's used as a approbation, or is it in the ordinary common sense of free citizens? That's the debate in America, and that's been going on since the progressive era began to grow in America in the 19th century, that long ago. So that's what's going to be debated now. And I am particularly keen on Vice President Vance because he's good at making that argument. And that's, I think, at its core, that's what the argument is going to be about. And I think we're really going to have that argument now. And whether the Congress will, the Republicans in the Congress, will back up President Trump, they didn't do a very good job of that in 2016 to 2020. They wouldn't, I don't think there's going to be any reluctance to build a wall now. But they wouldn't vote the money in a Republican.
I don't think they had any idea, and we'll talk about this Monday. I don't think the Republican Party of 2017 had any idea of the length to which the administrative state would go to overthrow a legitimately elected president by means surreptitious and deeply undemocratic. And I mean undemocratic in terms of the Brennan, Comey, Clapper ambush, the special counsel, the first impeachment, the nonsense. I had no idea.
Russia collusion. And see, remember, it's always true that, it's not likely that all those names you just named are wicked people, although they've done things that look to me like illegitimate use of power. They believe something, right? They think that modern technical society, great global power, ordinary people have to be led. And we have to have experts, and we are the experts, and we're not running for office, and we make a sacrifice because we don't make a lot of money in our jobs, although a lot of them do these days. And most of them don't, though. And, we live under rules, and there's a big structure, and everything proceeds in a certain way, bureaucratically, which is processes, which means the will of no single person can dominate. That's the claim, right? And we're experts. This is what we do, and we spend all our time on it. And the citizens who have other jobs can't know as much about this as we know, right? That's a claim to legitimacy, and you can find it, get the Hillsdale College Constitution Reader, and you can read it in the last long section of that thing, which is on the progressive era. They're making those arguments in 1888, and that's what's at stake. And remember, that's a serious argument, right? I mean, in Plato's Republic, the argument is the wisest should rule because they can do it the best. Now, it's a very curious book, as we're learning when we go through it, because Plato actually concludes that that's very hard to make work, maybe impossible.
And pause there because the time is such. I want to tell the audience, Dr. Arnn is going to continue to talk with me. We're going to put part 2 on Monday's program, and then we're going to return to Plato and the ongoing work of the Hillsdale Dialogue, which is to elevate and inspire, and that will be on Friday. So Monday, part 2 with Dr. Arnn, the election postmortem. Don't be mad at me. I know you want more of him, and I will give it to you on Monday. But thank you, everyone. All things Hillsdale at hillsdale.edu, and we will make sure that these dialogues are part of that collection. Stay tuned. I think it's actually Tuesday, because Monday I'll be live, but I'm looking at the calendar here. I think it'll be Tuesday, because Monday is our Semper Fi Fund, or the fund.org special. I'll be bringing you headlines. I'll be live in studio. Enjoy your long weekend. If you have the day off, I don't. I'm going to be here. But I'm also going to do my annual Semper Fi Fund, the fund.org show with the wounded warriors of the last 25 years, talking to them about the fund.org. But then on Tuesday, I'll play you part 2 of Dr. Arnn. In fact, I may post it all over at YouTube for the weekend, so you can enjoy it on your exercise. Have a great one. Thank you, Harley. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Dr. Arnn, of course. All things Hillsdale at hillsdale.edu.
Thanks for listening to the Hillsdale Dialogues, part of the Hillsdale College Podcast Network. More episodes at podcast.hillsdale.edu or wherever you find your audio. For more information about Hillsdale College, head to hillsdale.edu.